Please bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for everything you've done.
Late coming up here the last couple of times, but I was on it this time. Tonight, Dakota and I are going to tell you all a little about Trek. We're going to show some pictures as we go. I'm going to show you a few pictures. We haven't had a chance since we came back. I guess we got back right around the 1st of July. It was the day before Alicia's wedding. What was that, Rick? The 1st of July? June 28th. Same difference. So we haven't had a chance. Give or take a day or two. We hadn't had a chance to do this. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the process, the things that we do from day to day. I'm going to show you a few pictures and that kind of thing. Then I'm going to have Dakota come up, and Dakota will talk to you a little more in depth about Trek. I probably get more questions and more feedback even from y'all wanting to know more about this trip, because y'all hear a lot about us working up to going to Colorado. You hear, and I plead for you to pray for us while we're there, and then whenever we get home safe. And there's always a lot of questions, so I want to share a little more information, but I'm going to try for me to be brief so you know how that is. But we want to share this with y'all because y'all are the ones that enable us to go. Now, this is a big deal. We had, in August, my first YOU board meeting. YOU is the big youth rally that we do down in Conway every year. Cub and I are on the board. We're going into our 9th or 10th year. But there's a group of about 10 or 12 youth ministers and deacons and an elder that are on that board. And as we sit and it comes a place for us to share ideas, what's going on, encourage each other. There's never any griping, I promise, because a bunch of youth ministers would never get together and gripe. And so this is what we do, and this was our 3rd time to go to Trek, and we go every other year now. And I've been telling them about this for 3 or 4 years now. Hey, this is incredible, you've got to do that. Well, at our first YOU meeting back, we take the summer off. One group went that has been wanting to go, but they finally got it done, and they finally went. And whenever I got there, before I could say anything, he said, "Why haven't we been doing this for years? Why have we not been doing this?" Trek has been around for 30 years, 30 some odd years, and it's just really good. As people, us youth guys that work with young people, what we want to do is we want to build a place where the kids can grow together and grow relationships together, where they don't have to try to do right and try to be good examples and try to be Christian people all on their very own. They have a support system, right? And that's their youth group, we hope. And we also try to build their faith to be a little stronger. We try to do this by taking baby steps. The 7th graders in our youth group will tell you they have no rights. They're really not even citizens, but we do take them along. But 7th graders are a special type of people. We hope they grow out of it. So we bring them along. But this is, look, they all know it. We try to make them take steps. By the time they get to be in the 10th grade, the 11th grade, the 12th grade, we want them to be leaders. We want them to be helping bring the 7th graders along, the 8th graders along. We try to instill a faith in them that hopefully has enough meat to it, or at least have their feet in the ground that will help them weather their college time and those early 20s. And we know all about those. That way they can build their faith and establish themselves as a faithful person going on into the rest of their lives. The reason why I tell you that is we get a kid for about 7 years if we get them in the 7th grade, and we work with them to take these little baby steps. All the time we're trying to combine unity with spiritual growth, okay, in a safe place. And we're just building these baby steps. We go to the mountains for 1 week, and we take about 2 or 3 jumps forward. Now I want you to think about that. In spiritual life or in building a team, what if you could bypass little baby steps and take a big step forward, maybe even 2? Pretty good deal, isn't it? It's a pretty good deal. And that's what he told me when he got back. He said, Beau, why haven't we been doing this for years? He said, we were able to do with my group in 1 week what I haven't been able to do for 10 years with them. I said, I know the feeling. I know. It's great. So that's what we do. So it's about bonding and it's about growing spiritually. I'm going to have to turn around and look at this. Now you can see that's Toby sleeping on Dakota. I put that picture on here because I just knew they would love it so much. But when I tell you we go to bond, we're not pretending. That starts on the ride. That was probably about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we got in the car that morning, at about 4 o'clock? Look, everybody's smiling except for Toby and Dakota. What's the deal? They can own it. It's a long ride. 15 or so hours out there for those of you who have made the trek, 15 of us in a 15-passenger van. Oh, it's time to get to know one another, and that's how it started. Now, whenever we get to Salida late at night. We spend the night. We have about a half a day on our own before it starts. It starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we get up, we get around, we try to sleep late if we can. We eat some breakfast, and we always go downtown Salida. If you're ever just passing through Colorado, that is a neat little town. And we go downtown, and they have the coolest park ever. Now, let me tell you, as far as city parks go, Harrison's, in my mind, is about the second best one in the world. If you don't believe that, go to Denver City where I grew up, and I'll show you what a bad one looks like. Our park is amazing, but this one's number one. Right, kids? This place is amazing. And that is a cottonwood tree. If you're counting, there's 15 of us in that tree. And there's room for all of you, too. I've taken a picture of the group that we've taken every year in that tree. That is an absolutely huge tree. How many teenagers are sitting right over there right now? Not quite 15, but just 15 of us in that tree. Parachuting? Yeah, we're not talking about getting out. No, that's a different talk altogether. We always take a picture there. We spend that morning together. After this, they have a little rock climbing wall in the park. We did the rock climbing wall. We walked around. We went and ate downtown, looked around, did a little bit of shopping. We sat down in the park together, had a little talk, had a little prayer, and then we went and started trek. When trek starts, it really maybe shouldn't look this loose. People swinging on the tire swing over the pond and things like that, but this is how it starts. That's in Salida. They have a little camp right on the edge of Salida. They pack up, we take all of our clothes, and we pack all of our clothes into their gear. And we take a backpack, just a regular one. Now, they give us big, huge frame packs you'll see here in a second. They tell us what to pack where. Now, this is a student-led trip. That's important you hear that. This is a student-led trip. There was 15 of us plus 2 guides, so there were 17 on trail. And our guides are obviously our guides, but we were broken into 2 crews. Now, I did decide the crews for this reason. Haley Scott went as my chaperone. Our 2 crew leaders for the youth group were Dakota Ellis and Whitney Scott. Dakota and Whitney called the shots for everybody all week. Dakota will talk more about what that means here in a minute. Now, I told you I did decide who was going in one crew, because let's face it, I wasn't going to let Whitney boss Haley around, and I sure wasn't letting Dakota boss me around, okay? I figured Whitney was a little nicer. She only made me do dishes like once, I think, so that was good. But I'll let Dakota talk to you here in a minute about more what that means. But so for that first night, like I said, we start at 2. We get all our gear. We eat. We have a devotional. We meet together. We pray together. We get all of our stuff. Then we hang out on this little tire swing. That's Kendall standing on it. And we just sit out there and we play and we have a good time. We set up our tents. Make sure we know how to do that. You see a tent there in the background. And we do that. And we spend the night right there on the grounds. There's a little river running right by it. And the next morning we pack up early. We jump back on the van and we drove out to our mountain this year. We were again on Mount... Give me the name. Elbert. Drew blank. Mount Elbert, which is the tallest mountain in Colorado, 14,400 and what, like 61 feet? Who knows? Somewhere around there. Believe me, you know all 14,461 whenever you're hiking it. So we take off from there. Before we do that, we rappel. The first thing we do after we leave camp, we go and we rappel. Now that's hard to tell. But that is about a little over 200 feet vertical that you're looking at. Now, the angle, you all know whenever you've gone to the mountains or the beach or anywhere and you take your pictures and you come home and you're like, oh, it's not near as pretty in the pictures, or you just lose a feel of it. Well, yeah, that rock right there is straight out of the ground. I have a little thing, let me see. And this little, right there, you see that? The rope would go straight down. Then that rock doesn't come out. The mountain goes in behind it. So whenever you hit that point, you rappelled probably however long that was, just free, not with your feet or anything on it. The wind is howling around that rock and all that kind of stuff. Let me tell you, not for the faint of heart. Everybody did it. Everybody did a wonderful job. I've been asked, now, did you take girls this time? Yes. We took our girls, and they were wonderful. But their purpose for this, and they tell you after it's over, they said, look, we have to gain your trust really quick. Now, what's the best way to gain somebody's trust than to dangle them off a 200-foot rock and let them live through it? After that, if the guides told them, we need to do this, they did it. You know it? So that's how we gain trust. Now, there's one more thing I want you to see. Do you see that right there? That little dot right there, that little white thing? I believe that's Dakota. So that gives you some perspective there. It was really a lot of fun. It was cool. This is from the top of it, just looking out. We had a gorgeous view. And that's from the top of the rappel rock. Now, a helicopter flew by while we were there, and it flew below us. We were like, a helicopter. Everybody's like, where? No, down there. It was really neat, really neat. So that was the top of it. After we get finished rappelling, we put on all of our big packs. We got back down there and we took a short hike and we set up camp at Low Camp. Low Camp is probably like 8,000 or 9,000 feet, something like that. That's Kyra standing over. You see that? Isn't that gorgeous? Kyra looking down out there. Now that's very near the headwaters of the Arkansas River. So there you go, Arkansas. That's it right there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. The next morning we get up and we hike to the high camp. High camp is a very long day. We get up in the morning. We start hiking, we break down camp, we start hiking very early, and we hike most of the day. There's Dee showing you what the accommodations for the week look like, really nice. And that was Dakota, Toby, and Daniel slept in that tent. And they got to carry that tent all the way up the mountain and back. Here we are, you see some packs. You can see the packs on, there's Michael on the front. You see it's up above his head. And it goes down almost down to the bend of his knees, and it's wider than you are. And we carry our fuel for cooking, pots and pans, food for a week, tents, our crew fly. We have a little tarp that we set up that we all eat our meals under or run under if it starts raining. Everything you need for a week, we carried in these packs. They say on the thing, packs are between 40 and 60 pounds, depending on who's carrying what. But 50-pound average is pretty good. Some maybe were a little lighter, some were a lot heavier, I can assure you. But there we go. And look, there's Miss Emily just marching right along. As far as major injuries this year, we had only 3. No, they weren't major. We had 3 toenails come off during the week. Emily had one come off. Christina had one come off. Or did you just get a half of one? Somebody just had a half of a nail, which was even worse. It came off. And then one of our guides, Zandon, who was a great young man, he was a little bit cute, so I don't know. All the girls seemed to wake up in the morning smiling, and I was like, oh, come on. But he lost a toenail as well. Now, let me tell you, whenever you're hiking with that extra weight going uphill, or what's even worse, coming down where you're pushing your toes in the bottom of those boots every step down, a toenail injury is about as bad as it gets. So there we are, hiking. Whenever we got to high camp, our high camp, you can look, if you look straight across how the mountains are getting real sparse over there. We're just below tree line. We're well above 10,000 feet here, and we spent 3 nights here. That mountain right there, you see right over here. Let me see that. That is called La Plata. That is what they call a 14er. It's over 14,000 feet. About 100 yards from our high camp, there was this little clearing right here, and we would hike over there every night, and we'd sit down and we'd have our devotionals. Now, I want you to think, could you imagine every night getting to sit down as the sun, and that thing, whenever the sun was setting by it, turned every color you could ever imagine. It's just gorgeous. But we sat and had our devotionals every night right there. They gave us these books when we start. The book, they had, I picked a page I didn't fill out. Let me pick out one that I did. But it guided your study for the day. And it was all themed with what we were doing, whether you had your rappel that day, whether you had your hike that day, whether we had a rest day, whether we had a summit day, whatever it was. And then that night we'd gather together and we'd talk and pray and sing and do all these good things. And I don't always, and even with the parents, I'll talk about all the fun of doing it, but I haven't ever really talked about the spiritual part of it, which is what it's all about. and it's overwhelming. Dakota will talk a little more about it in a minute, but a lot of the things that are said and done right here while we're looking at that at night is where our bonding and togetherness really comes, and that spiritual growth where they're taking steps hand in hand at the same time. There's something about whenever you have a shared experience, whenever you have shared struggle, when you have shared success and shared achievement, how that bonds people together. You know? Now think about how we're supposed to, this is an aside, but how we're supposed to function as a church. Shared experience, shared lives, shared struggles, shared salvation, shared accomplishments. You see? We get in a week climbing a mountain, we teach them what the church should look like, how it should function, how that should be bonding all of us together. It's unbelievable. Now, we were there 3 days. We made our summit attempt. This is us on the way up. We climbed Mount Elbert last time, but we climbed the front side of the mountain. This time we climbed the back side, and let me tell you, totally different mountain back there. Totally different. We ended up the same spot, just totally different. Now, you can see this was early in the morning. We hiked most of the day because the sun came up on the other side. So we hiked in the shade most of the morning, and so we froze. It was really cold going up. I mean, this is probably mid-morning. But I'll tell you this just real quick. We were on the trail hiking by about 4:30, 4:45. I think they said we made it to summit by what time? 10:30, 11? 10:30, 11. In that time, we gained a little over 4,000 feet of altitude vertical. We had beautiful weather, best weather we've ever had up there. Dakota, why don't you start marching over here and have a seat? We were able to stay up there for like an hour and a half, which was incredible. We stayed up there for about an hour, hour and a half, and then we started hiking on back down. And by the time we got home by probably 2:30 in the afternoon, we've had a full day. But we made it. The weather was beautiful and held out for us. And I was going to show you this whenever we got up there. That was whenever we gained the ridge. You saw all we were seeing before. We were just seeing the backside of the mountain. Whenever you get up on the ridge, your view opens up. You're seeing down both sides of the mountain. Then you follow that ridge up to the top. It was a lot of fun. Now look, this is when we made it. There's our group picture. So there we are smiling. You can see Zandon is on the left, the far left. Yes, I said Zandon, spelled with an X. Weird parents, I guess. On the far right is Graham, and he was our other guide. And then they said, hey, let's take a picture with the Harrison Daily Times, which we haven't given to the paper yet. Put that on the to-do list, somebody. So there's the Harrison Daily Times at the tallest part of Colorado. And then they said, hey, why don't we just do a silly one? Or another silly one? And why don't we do one like we just crawled up the mountain like this? And why don't we do another one? Oh, yeah, those are our Northside signs. We figured out how to make an N, and somebody was making S's. So anyway, Northside. Hey, that was how we make. Okay, that's how we represented. Aren't you proud? Let's see. And then those are our tough guy pictures. You know Daniel with the hat on sideways. Nothing's tougher than that. Let's see. And then that's our giddy one. Woohoo, we made it. It was great. While we're there, I think we're surrounded by God's beauty. Like, it's just, you can't. This is when you walk to get water. That's a mountain stream. That's where we got our water to drink. We chlorinated and all that stuff. Got our water to cook and all of that. But you go fill up your water bottle, and that snow melt, cold water. And that's what you have. These pictures, I think Dakota might have, or somebody took that picture. But it's just, you're surrounded by God's beauty. It is impactful on my life and on these young people's life. Dakota, why don't you come talk for a second to us? I'm going to leave this picture up right there.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for making this trip possible for our youth. It was a really good experience, and it's time of renewal, and we're very blessed to be able to do it every other year. This is my second time going, and the dynamics this year were a lot better. The last 2 years we've had to go with other groups because we've only had a handful of guys. And this year is the ability for our whole group to go. I think 15 people were able to go this year. It allows us to really be able to grow together. Personalities came out that you usually don't see. There's this thing called the poop shovel, and it sets in the middle of the camp, and some people you might not think would ever even touch that thing, which Toby never did the whole week and never used the bathroom out there. But but other people you wouldn't think they'd ever do it, they did, and just different personalities came out, and it was really, really a neat experience. Me and Whitney, we were the crew leaders this year, and it's a big responsibility, but at the same time, it's also a big privilege. We're servant leaders while we're out there, and our responsibility is to assign responsibilities to the different people in our crews, such as washing dishes or cooking, stuff like that. And our main role, mine and Whitney's main role, and which I think she did a far greater job than me, was just being very encouraging throughout the whole trip. Now this trip, it wasn't just a physical endeavor, which it was very great. Just like Beau said, we carried 40 to 60 pound packs on our back. It was high altitude. We slept in tents. In a sense, it was a very old fashioned way of life, but it was also a very big spiritual endeavor. It allowed us as a group to become more renewed with our walk with Christ. Every day was a struggle, but you had a sense of renewment. It also allowed a time to reflect with your walk with Christ. There wasn't any distractions like you get whenever you're living here in the city, like phones and entertainment, and you don't have any major responsibilities, just pretty basic. So it was a really good time to regroup and to realize that how great God is and how much He loves you. And the great benefit that I think we as a group, guys, we grew closer to each other. We depended on each other, and as a group, we turned more into like a family. We were able to, now we have the ability to be accountable to each other. And you realize during the trip that it's easier to hear God and to listen to God at quiet times, and it puts a responsibility on you, I think, to make a time in your life daily where you just sit quietly and you listen to Him. So I really want to thank you guys. I want to leave you guys with Psalms 72, verse 3. It says, "Let the mountains bear prosperity for the people, and the hills in righteousness." And that's what that week did. It bared prosperity in our group. And I want to thank you guys for allowing us to go.
He had to bring up the poop shovel. I would like to say for the second trip in a row, guess who got to carry? I hadn't forgotten that, Whitney. She brought it to me. She was like, "Hey, you're carrying the poop shovel." And I was like, "No." Now, we'll say this about that. You talk about barriers being gone. We rode 15 hours out there in a van. We spent every single second together. And you know that whole topic, especially with teenagers, boys and girls, we'd never. By the second day, it's like, who's got the shovel? Come on, girls, we're gone. Barriers fly out the window, and that's really good. But beyond that, it's just it's hard to explain to you. One kid said one night at our final Devo, they said, on the way out here, I had my group of friends in the youth group, and we all have. And you understand that because you have your group of friends here, don't you? But they said, after this is over, I don't care. I still have my group of friends. But if I have to go ride for 15 hours next to that person, or if I have to go sit with this one, or if I'm going to go over, it makes no difference. Because we're all together, right? That's all that matters. So just what if we were that way? It really is incredible. The theme that they had for us that week came out of Matthew chapter 7. It says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." Just like this, they told us the percentage of people in this world that will ever successfully climb a 14,000-foot mountain. It's very, very small. But it's also very difficult to do. But anything worth doing is pretty tough, isn't it? And there's some kind of saying like that my dad used to always tell me. Yeah. But anything worthwhile is going to be pretty hard to do, and this certainly was. And so is living a life of faith. You know what it says? It says, narrow the road, and only a few will find it that leads to eternal life. And it might be difficult and hard for us here, but living in eternity with the Lord is worth the struggle now. It's like the struggle up the mountain was worth it with the payoff at the top. I want to challenge you to something along the lines of what Dakota just said. Dakota said that maybe all of us should try to find a part in your day where you just sit quietly and spend some time with the Lord and recognize Him all around you. That's one of the things they would ask them, where did you see the Lord today? And as the week went on, they would start saying things, you know, it's obvious we see Him all around us in His beauty and His creation, but I saw the Lord today in my brother or sister as they struggled and didn't give up, or as they persevered, or as somebody took the weight off of their pack and put it on theirs so that they would make it. Or as they went and fetched water for somebody who they knew was too tired to go get it themselves. But it's only whenever we sit down and really take times to watch our brothers and sisters around us that we realize what He's done. Joni did an experiment about a week or two. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? She's like, don't say my name. But before I left to come to work, she said, Beau, I'm just going to tell you right now, whatever our plans are for the day, let's make sure we have them all ironed out and all that kind of stuff. I'm turning my cell phone, the this or the whatever, all the things are, pad, all those things, I'm turning them off for the day. I'm not going to have my phone or any of it for a day. Now that's crazy talk, isn't it? Most of you can live without it. And you know, at the end of the day, she told me, I didn't miss it. This was great. And she reads her Bible every single day anyway. She's like, I read a little bit more today than I usually do. Now, we've become this thing where all of us are as bad or worse than all of them whenever it comes to our little electronic devices, aren't we? This is what I want to challenge you to do. Turn that silly thing off this week. Leave your phone at the house. Oh, I know your kids will get real mad at you. But put up your phone. Put up your electronics. Hide your remote for a day. Spend a little time. Yeah, look. Some of you went, get rid of my cell phone? Sure. Get rid of the iPod? Yeah. Remote? What? Jack says, no. Let's lose those things. You know why this is so successful? They don't even let us wear a watch. We don't get to wear a watch. We don't get to take our phones. We don't get to take a fancy GPS. And it's amazing how much time you can sit and read and pray and reflect on the goodness of our God whenever you're not plugged in from every direction. My challenge to you this week, you might not get to go to Colorado. Lose the remote. Lose your phone. Lose it. If you can't do a whole day, because you might get jittery, start with an hour or two. But spend some time this week just sitting still, being quiet, reading the Bible, and praying to God. It'll bless your life just like it blessed these kids' lives for a week. Thank you again for letting us go. It's a big, big deal. David's going to come up and lead us in song. If you need your church family, please come while we stand and sing.